So hi everyone, I'm Julien Dubois. I work for Microsoft as a developer advocate. And usually people know me because of this tool called Gipster. You probably know about it. We've got 20K GitHub stars. It's even used by DevOps, so you all our end users. And so the other day, I got a Twitter direct message for asking for support, because that's how big companies ask for support for open source organizations. They send DM messages to the core contributor. And they had a very important business critical requirement. They wanted support for Internet Explorer. And you know, it's done by that company I work for. So I needed to talk with them about Internet Explorer support. And they told me it's a very important business requirement because 5% of their users are using Internet Explorer. So it's critical for their business. Do you know the percentage of people who suffer from accessibility needs? It's probably more than 5%. Do you have any idea? 50, so thank you. Indeed, it's 15%. Last year, there was a campaign everywhere in the world, including in the UK, called With the 15, so that's why that number is well known today. So 15% of the world's population is having accessibility issues. That's more than 1 billion people, and far more people than people using Internet Explorer. So if Internet Explorer is a business requirement, that is a very critical business requirement for you. So today, I want to give you 10 good habits to make your software more accessible. And let's get started. So first, I want to start with some definition, because we're software developers. We are in a software development conference. And what does accessibility mean for us? And a modern definition is a mismatch between what you are able to do and what we expect you to be able to do. Let's take an example. Here, I wrote some text on white with a black background, or dark gray background. I could have used a lighter gray. And some people who are colorblind would not have been able to see that text. And that would have been mismatch between what I expect them to be able to do and what they can effectively do. And that would have been a disability. Thanks to the W3C in our world, we've got some guidelines. They've got a working group for accessibility, and they give us 4 guidelines for creating accessible content on software. The first one is that what you create should be perceivable. So that's my first example. Can you see it? If you can't see that button, well, you can't use it. It's not accessible. That one is obvious. Second one is that operable. Maybe you created that button with some nifty CSS tricks, and it only works with a keyboard, and the person is using a pointer like me, and so it doesn't work. And so if you can't click it, it's not accessible. Is that understandable? A lot of people have cognitive issues. Maybe you did something which is too complex, and people can't use it, and that's also an accessibility issue. And the last one, it should be robust, so you don't rely on, for example, a third-party web browser plugin, so your website is accessible. It should use standard web-based technologies like the W3C is doing. And that's my first habit that I wanted to share with you. You first need to define what accessibility is in your context. For software development, it's probably what we just saw, but you need to work on that, because accessibility is different from one domain to the other. Now, to my second habit, I would like to start by talking about why we do that. Why do we do accessibility for this 1 billion people? And this is an example of a school. It's in France, and it's a beautiful school, and they've got those 3 stairs, and they forgot, of course, about people with wheelchairs. So if you've got a wheelchair, well, you still need to go to school, and they could have built a ramp. They've got plenty of space, but they didn't. They didn't think of you. So you will still go there, but it will annoy you. It will annoy your friends and your family, because they will need to help you. And we can immediately see here that there's a lot of people who are going to be annoyed by those 3 stairs. So my first reason why we would do accessibility is because we care for all those people. Then there's a second reason. Let's imagine it's not a school, but it's a business. And software is an economic activity. Most of us here are working for companies. And if you're in a company, we've got plenty of studies that show that companies that invest into accessibility vastly outperforms those who don't. Very simply, we just saw there's 1 billion people with accessibility needs, so they can't access your shop. And you can also imagine that their friends and families also won't come with them. So if you close the door to all of those people, you're going to lose business. So the second reason why you would do accessibility is because it's good for your company. The third reason, legislation. In a lot of countries, including in the UK, accessibility is mandatory for certain types of websites. And there's a fourth reason to do accessibility. It's for yourself. In a country like the UK, where the life expectancy is above 70 years old, we all expected to live more than 10% of our life with some accessibility issues, mostly citing issues. I'm starting to get them, by the way. So if you don't do accessibility for the others, well, think about yourself in a few years when you will need it. So I gave you 4 good reasons to do accessibilities, but I didn't do them totally just for yourself. I did them because my second habit is to convince your boss. You need to tell your boss that accessibility is super important because you care for those people, because it's a legal obligation, and also because it makes money, and probably your boss likes money, so that's something that he will love. And you need to do that because my next 8 habits are going to cost money. Well, it's going to cost time and resources, so he needs to give you time and resources to do them. And so that's why you need to convince him to give you that time and resources. Now let's go to the third habit, and let's really go into accessibility. So here are some personas. The one in the middle, she's called Ashley. She's 24 years old. She's young and she's blind, so she's using a screen reader. On the right, we've got Ron. So Ron is 82, so he's a bit older. He's having cataracts. So it's a little bit of the same issue, but not exactly the same issue. And he's not using a screen reader because he never learned to use one. So he's got kind of a similar issue, not solving it the same way. And you can imagine that by using those personas, you're going to learn a lot about the issues that those people face when they are using your software. All those personas are available on that website, and it's done by the UK government, so by your government, and it's all free on GitHub. If you go there, you will have detailed personas with their issues. And what you need to do now is go to the software you're building, use those personas, and experience the issues that those people have when they use your website. And here you will learn a lot. You will first learn empathy, because you will feel the same way as those people. And that's my third habit. Use those personas on your website and get empathy, understand what those people experience when they use your software. And once you will do that, you will see that, a bit like Ashley and Ron, you will see that there's not just one type of persona, there's a spectrum of persona. When we speak about accessibility, usually we think about people with permanent disabilities. So you are missing one arm, and there is quite a lot of people who are amputees, but there are far more people who have a temporary disability, so you broke your arm at a ski accident, and also a lot of people who have situational disabilities, I like this one with a heavy accent because I am French, and now I have an accessibility issue with you. In fact, it's hard for me to do a French accent now. But what you will see is that as soon as you fix accessibility issues for one type of people, you're going to fix it for a lot more people than you expected at first. And that's my fourth habit. You test with one type of people, and then you expand it to many more people. And you will see that you're going to solve a lot of trouble for a lot of people, and not just the one you expected with just the personas. Now let's move on with our website. And the website we're building is, I took something very classical. It's a ticketing scenario. So you need to create an account, you need to log in, you need to search for some flights to buy, you need to put them in your cart, you need to check out, you need to pay. That's a whole workflow. And if you use that workflow with the personas, you're going to see one annoying thing. You don't need to fix accessibility at just one step. If you just fail at one of those numerous steps in that workflow, and they all have different issues, well, it's as good as not doing anything, because here's your goal. I mean, your boss's goal is to sell plane tickets. So if just one step is not working, it's as good as not doing anything, because the person won't be able to buy any plane ticket at all. And here, when you will be using those personas which have all different issues, and we will have lots of different steps to do, you're going to learn a lot about those issues, and that's going to spend a lot of time to fix that. And that's my fifth step, and this is mostly why we're at the second step, where you needed to convince your boss. For the fifth step, you need to spend a lot of time learning about all those issues people have when using specifically your website, and that's going to take a lot of time. That's probably the most complicated step to do. As we're software developers, we're going to do those using software methodology, and usually people do that at the end. Like, you do your whole website, and at the end you say, oh, we're going to use the personas and have a look at accessibility. And many people do that, and that's wrong for two reasons. The first one, of course, is that you're always late, and you will never have time at the end to do that step. That's a bit of a joke, but it's always true. We never have time. The second reason is that accessibility should be at each step of your coding process. Because it's cheaper, let's take again the example of the button which didn't have the right color. If you fix this at the very beginning, at the wireframe part, it's going to cost close to nothing to have the right color at the end. If you don't do that, and you want to fix this at the very end, when you've got all the images with the wrong color, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So what you need to do is have accessibility included at each step of your design process, so you create accessible software by default. And just looking at the time, that means a change in the way you design your software. Instead of having a large investment at the end, you're going to have small investments at each part. And in each sprint of your software development process, you will do accessibility. And that's a huge change, and that's also why you need to convince your boss, because, well, that's going to be a shift in the way you work. Now, sorry, that's my sixth step. You need to iterate in small steps and do not leave accessibility for the end. Now, how do you do that, especially as software developers? You use tools for that. And the first tool I wanted to share with you is called Accessibilityinsights Io. It's free if you go to that website. There are different versions. The best one to get started is a web browser plugin. So that works on Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, not Internet Explorer. It's not the market share. Not enough market share. And if you install that web browser plugin, you will see that, well, you've got different options, but there is one which is very easy, which is called FastPass. And just go to the website you're building with that plugin, click on FastPass, and it will do a quick check of your website. It will find tons of issues. It did on all my software. On the Gypsy website, it found tons of issues I still need to fix, by the way. And that's a very good way to get started. It's not going to see everything, but it's a good first step. And it's graphical, and it's also giving you some hints and some solutions to fix those issues. So very easy to get started. And then they've got more options when you want to do more complex stuff, like having the right tabulations. That's something you need to do graphically. You need to see if the tabulations are right. It's always wrong on all the websites. So that's going to take you some time, but it's a good first step. And that's my 7 habits. Use tools. And typically, Accessibility is a very good tool to get started with. Now I want to mix a bit step 6 and 7, because as software developers, we should all use continuous integrations. So this is GitHub Actions, and this is a very simple Java continuous integration tool where I build my code and I test it. That's awesome. Well, you could add a new step, which is called Accessibility Insights. Accessibility Insights is available also as a GitHub Actions step. And if you add it, it's going to automatically test your software each time somebody commits something or sends you a PR. That means, if you do that, that all the issues that you fix with Accessibility Insights will never come back anymore. And that's a great way to have accessibility by default in your website. You include it in each step of your software design process. You put it to your GitHub Actions so they don't come back. And so by default, you produce accessible software. And that's awesome. Please note, because very often I have discussions about that, it's not magical. It's helping a lot, but you still need to work a bit on it. And so that's my 8th step. You need to automate, for example, with GitHub Actions, so accessibility issues do not come back once you have fixed them. Now, let's step back a little. So I work for Microsoft, and we've got that tool that a lot of people use because of the pandemic, called Microsoft Teams. So I'm guessing a lot of you have used Teams. You all love Teams, I'm sure. I'm not sure you've all seen those 3 little dots, because if you don't have accessibility needs, you never clicked on that button. And if you click there, you will see something called Immersive Reader. And Immersive Reader, it's a great tool. It transforms the UI into something which is accessible. So it's like black text, big black text on white. Much easier for people with vision issues. And that's cool. And that's what we've discussed from now on. You know, we want to make accessible content for people, accessible software for people. But once you start playing with it, you're going to see it's got some great features that were not expected. It can explain the language to you. It can translate the language. It can translate up to 100 different languages. It can help with pronunciation, which is very useful for me. It can help with syllables. And it can even give you pictures of the words, so you can understand them better. And that's very good for people with cognitive issues, or even if you're learning the language. And what we see here is that, so we build accessibility into Microsoft Teams for all the reasons we've discussed before, because we want to care for those people. But then we're saying that thanks to accessibility, we have new innovations arriving, and those innovations are helping people who don't speak your language. They're helping young children who are learning to read, and it's making better software for everyone, and not just for people with accessibility. It helped us to innovate and make far better software. And I've been using the same thing here for PowerPoint, so that's subtitles with PowerPoint. I hope it worked correctly with me. It seems to be working. It's the same technology as Microsoft Teams, and initially this is done for people who could not hear you, so I hope if you have that kind of issue, you were able to follow me thanks to the subtitles. But same thing as Microsoft Teams, this added new possibilities, new benefits for everyone, new innovation. Now you can see this talk as a video on YouTube in a crowded place, in a train, and you can read the text. Maybe you don't want to listen to me for 20 minutes, and you want to do it at twice the speed, and the subtitles will help you to understand what I'm talking about. And again, we see that thanks to accessibility, we added a lot of innovation to our software, and our software became a lot better. And that's my 9th point. Thanks to accessibility, you're going to be able to innovate more. If you support Internet Explorer, you will not be able to innovate more at all. But if you add accessibility, it will open up the doors. You will build, in fact, you will build better software. And because you build better software, you will have new innovation arriving automatically. Yesterday, we announced at Microsoft we've got some new accessibility tools. We've got a new mouse with new buttons, and you can print them in 3D, and that's super cool. And the first reason we do that is, of course, for people with accessibility needs. But then, I mean, it was announced yesterday, we already have some people who want to do some 3D stuff for other type of usage, like you playing games, and you want to have some buttons to automate stuff. And we see that thanks to accessibility, we open the door to a lot of innovations that we couldn't have had otherwise. So that's another very good reason to do accessibility. It's good for everyone. And that's also why a lot of Microsoft product is very popular today. If you want to know more about accessibility, because I'm nearly out of time, we've got a lot of resources at Microsoft, but most of the things I've talked about are in that training called Accessibility Fundamentals. It's free. So just go to that website, click, and you will learn first more detailed about accessibility, what we just covered, by giving you habits, but we didn't really give you how to do that. And then you will also learn how we do it at Microsoft, like in PowerPoint and Teams. And I know we're software developers, so probably you use more VS Code than Teams or PowerPoint. But your boss probably uses a lot of Microsoft PowerPoint and Teams. He loves Teams and PowerPoint, your boss. And so you can tell your boss, instead of sending me DM messages to support Internet Explorer, have a look at how Microsoft does accessibility, so you can do it the same inside your software. And so first of all, include all of those people, that 1 billion people, that 15% of the world population who have accessibility issues, and their friends and their families, so all those people can enjoy the software you work on, but also open the door to new innovations like subtitles, and that will benefit everyone. And hopefully your software will be more successful that way. And so that was my 10th habit, get training on accessibility. That will take some time. That's also why you need to convince your boss to give you, half a day to do some training. If you want to talk more about that, feel free to come to the Microsoft booth and talk with me. Thank you.